Welcome, everybody, once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. We're going to get you right up to date with all of this week's signings and news from around the NHL. And then Matt and I are going to jump into our top 10 list of defensemen. And, man, that was hard. So if you're listening to this, watching this, wherever you're tuning in, whether it's on Facebook, remember to hit like and subscribe. Or if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and share our content with friends. But more importantly, leave a comment below who we left off of our top 10 list or why your favorite players should be on there. Or leave us your top 10 list. But let's get right into it. Matt, 9 players signed here this week. Just go. Let's jump right into that.
All right. So the biggest one was Jake Gardiner signed a 4-year deal with a cap hit just a little over $4 million, which was exactly the same cap hit that he had with the Toronto Maple Leafs, actually. 30 points in 62 games last year. I think this is actually a really good signing for Carolina, just adding to their massive depth and skill they have on the back end. And it's crazy that all 6 defensemen that they have currently all have a cap hit under $6 million. So talk about great bang for the buck. And he also turned down apparently a contract offer from the Montreal Canadiens as well.
That was who actually more money apparently too.
Yeah, more money. So great signing there. But with that comes some trade rumors to Justin Falk between him and the Anaheim Ducks. Have been the latest rumor, but that hinges on a contract extension apparently, and possibly the return going back from the Ducks is Andre Kasha or Kashe, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But yeah, if Carolina is able to get him back in a Falk trade, I think that's a huge win. But yeah, that's the biggest signing. We go back. Jumbo Joe is returning for his 22nd career season in the NHL. Joe Thornton signed a 1-year, $2 million deal. 51 points, 73 games last year. He's pretty close to some big milestones. He's 22 points away from 1,500, and he's 34 games away from 1,600 in his career. So I think as long as he wants to continue to play, the Sharks will keep bringing him back on 1-year deals. The next big one, Zach Werenski, a 3-year, $15 million deal, $5 million cap hit. The big thing here is the structure of his deal. The first 2 years, he's making $4 million, and the final year, he's making $7 million. And with that, at the end of the contract, the qualifying offer Columbus has to bring him is at least bare minimum $7 million. So that's the big thing there. And also, Columbus only has Werenski and Seth Jones locked up for the next 3 seasons at just over $10 million for the next 3 seasons. So that's great right there. And we'll see how that affects Charlie McAvoy and Ivan Provorov, who have yet to re-sign as well. Riley Shand was signed to a 1-year, $900K deal with the Edmonton Oilers. Good depth centerman, 6'3". It comes with the Detroit Red Wings connection with Ken Holland, who had him when he was with Detroit. He had 19 points in 82 games last year between Pittsburgh and Florida, and he has a good shot at being the third-line center. Brendan Perlini.
That's more because Kyle Brodziak, who we were going to mention, is out for this. Maybe the season, it looks like, for the
he apparently he's dealing with back issues. Last year he had played in 70 games and 9 points, but actually looking at Brodziak's, he's played over 900 games in the NHL, which I found was crazy because I know he's been around, but over 900 games. So, but yeah, it looks like so that frees up that center spot right there for the Oilers. The next one, Brendan Perlini, he actually decided to accept his qualifying offer after sitting out most of the season. So he signed a 1-year deal with just worth a little over $874K. He was acquired in that Dylan Strome deal. He had 12 goals, 15 points in 46 games with the Blackhawks last year. And, of course, he does have some potential upside, but I see him sliding in on that third line. Jack Campbell got a 2-year contract extension that kicks in the 2020-21 season. It's a 2-year deal with a $1.65 million cap hit. Crazy numbers last year for a terrible Kings team. In 25 starts, you went 10-14-1 and had a 9.28 save percentage and 2 shutouts. So absolutely crazy. But the crazy thing is when that contract does kick in is that the Kings will have 3 goalies on one-way contracts with Cal Peterson and Jonathan Quick as the other 2. And the thing with Quick is that he doesn't have any trade protection with his contract. So that could be a trade coming down one way or the other after the end of this season. The next one is Pavel Zacha got a 3-year contract extension worth $2.25 million per year. And this came off the day before where rumors were he was going to sign in the KHL. And the Devils GM Ray Shero, let's just say he went on an animated rant. Just to paraphrase, basically, it's like he doesn't give a blank where he was going to play because the Devils still owned his rights. And he thought the best time or best area to develop is in the NHL and not back overseas. Zacha, he had 25 points in 61 games last year. Had a really bad start to the season and even got demoted to the AHL. But towards the end of the season, he actually got on a bit of a hot streak. But with Heischer, Zajac, and Jack Hughes all down the middle, he's going to be tough in for some playing time. But he's also a guy that's struggled to live up to his draft type. I think he was like the 6th overall pick in 2015 off the top of my head. And with all the guys taken after him, there's a lot of star players taken after him in that draft. So hopefully he can get back on track. And then the last 2 guys coming today, Kevin Fiala with Minnesota got a 2-year extension with a $3 million cap hit coming over in the Michael Granlund trade. He had 39 points in 83 games last season, but he only had 3 goals and 7 points in 19 games with the Wild last season. He was also a minus 12 in those 19 games. So he's a guy that has a lot of upside, and he could be a 20-goal, 50-point guy this season. And lastly, the funny signing here, the Calgary Flames, after buying out Michael Stone earlier this summer, re-signed him today to a 1-year, $700K deal. After getting bought out and all that, his combined cap hit with the buyout is $1.86 million this year instead of $3.5 million from last.
Making though about $400 or $4 million though.
yeah. So he's basically making about half his salary from what it was. So yeah, it's like yeah. At first I thought I'm just like, isn't there something in the rule book that says you can't bring back a player that you just bought out? But apparently there isn't. I
guess if they technically bought him out, he got the cash up front, and he now is going to get paid $700,000 throughout the year.
Yeah. So those are the big signings over this past week, and also the Boston Bruins gave head coach Bruce Cassidy a multi-year extension. Pierre LeBrun reported that's probably somewhere in the $3 million range, but the NHL doesn't release all the head coaching money or salaries to the public. So, but yeah, Bruce Cassidy, excellent head coach with since taking over from Claude Julien. Of course, as the Bruins went to the Stanley Cup Finals this past season. So just a great extension there for the Bruins.
Other Boston Bruins, quick notes there about the ownership.
Yes. So Bruins owner Jeremy Jacobs signed over the franchise over to his 6 children. Jeremy is 80 years old now, but he's owned the Boston Bruins since 1975, which is insane to have an owner around for that long. But yeah, so that's the big news. And also with Patrice Bergeron, apparently that groin injury that he had been dealing with during the playoffs and all that is still nagging him. And he told one of the reporters that he had to take a shot to deal with some of the inflammation there. So that's something to keep an eye on if that's something that continues to bug him. Because he might have to end up going down the surgery route, and that might be better to get it done earlier rather than later, especially if the Bruins hope to have any big playoff success with. Everybody knows how great Patrice Bergeron is, so there's that. And then a couple other notes.
Everybody's favorite ex-general manager I see signed with St. Louis.
Yeah, Yeah, he was hired on as a consultant with the St. Louis Blues, so luckily it's nothing too crazy there. And also some Vancouver Canuck news to all our Canuck fans out there. Antoine Roussel says he's on track on his schedule from his torn ACL. So he started skating a couple of weeks ago, and he should be back on track to return in December. The Canucks also hired Chris Higgins as an assistant director to Ryan Johnson with the Utica Comets, and they also had some switch ups in their amateur scouting. One of them was actually a former Vancouver Giants coach and Abbotsford Heat head coach as well. And then also they hired Ryan Beach as a video analyst. He actually was a part of the media group with Vancouver the past I don't know how many seasons. And also Dan Cloutier resigned as the head of the goaltending group there. I think he did the last 8 seasons he's been part of the Canucks, and he spent a lot of time with the Utica last year. And another fun, and just one last funny quote from Elias Pettersson on the Brock Besser situation. He said, "He's like, I talked to him throughout the summer. He'll sort it out. Otherwise, I'll drive to Minnesota to pick him up myself." So the death stare is going directly towards Minnesota right now to Brock Besser. And of course, on the Besser situation, there are still reports that are saying that the Canucks are far apart on a deal, but you never know. Like we just saw with Pavel Zacha, one day he was in a sign in the KHL, the next day he was signed to a contract with the Devils. So it can change at any moment, and like stuff with like the Mitch Marner situation still that's going on. Like the Leafs are wanting to get him to a 7-8 year deal around at $11 million average, but Marner wants a bridge deal around the $3 million mark, and it's just insane the amount of money that players are turning. Well, with like Marner with $11 million, that's like you're in the top 10 highest paid players in the NHL. If that is the reported number, but yeah, that's
really baffling. I think Marner, I heard, is looking for around 13 a year, and like you said, he wants the short-term contract so that he can potentially sign for the long-term after that. But why not take the money now? I mean, geez, if you're getting 11 mil for 8 years, go for it. Like that's $88 million. What else do you need? Like you're set for life after that.
But yeah, it's just like, especially it's just like fans or well, there's always that thing that says like, oh, players will take a little less so they can keep the group together if they're really good and everything. But yeah, we're seeing now, especially in Toronto, because we had William Nylander last season, and then Austin Matthews maxed out with his contract. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. But at least we had a couple RFAs signed this year with Werenski, so we're slowly but surely. And also the funny thing with Werenski, he probably got scared with John Tortorella.
Yeah.
His comments, but yeah. So that's that's all the news from the past week. And we'll be getting into our top 10 defensemen now.
Yeah, so speaking of Zach Werenski, he did not make my top 10 list. But we're going to get into the top 10 defensemen now, heading into the season. What a tough list to put together. I have many people that are not on the list that I think could easily make a case to be on the list. So leave us your top 10 list below and share that with us so we can see what you think. And we're going to share eventually in a couple days ours. And by the way, Matt, thanks for putting up our goalie list. I really like having that up as a separate post rather than having our having it written in on our existing post. So there's no easy way to start this, but let's count it down 10 through 8. I'll go first. I'm going to go with Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman Seth Jones as my number 10. My number 9 from the Washington Capitals, John Carlson. And my number 8, Stanley Cup champion Alex Pietrangelo from the St. Louis Blues. I just cannot – there's many other guys that could have easily been in those positions, but if I was a general manager and I was building a team, I would prefer those guys on my team. And remarkably, I think most of the guys on my list, I'm just looking, 6 out of my 10 are all right-handed defensemen. So we'll leave it at that. Those are my 10, 9, 8, which is Seth Jones, John Carlson, and Alex Pietrangelo.
All right. Well, I think those guys will pop up a little later on my list, so I'll tease you there. My number 10 from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Morgan Riley. Excellent season last year. 20 goals, 72 points. I think the only thing that knocks him a little bit lower on my list is that a lot of these defensemen are all-around defensemen, and he doesn't get as much penalty kill time as a lot of the top NHL guys do. But when it comes to mobility, offensive vision, and then of course the goal scoring, like not many defensemen can put up 20 goals in the NHL nowadays. So he cracks number 10. Number 9. This was a guy that I've been going back and forth on putting on my list this season just because he had such a bad season. But Drew Doughty is my number 9. He still put up decent offensive numbers, 8 goals, 45 points in 82 games. But he was the second. He had the second worst plus minus in the NHL. He was a minus 34. But the thing is that he still had the second highest total ice time per game. He averaged just over 26 and a half minutes a night.
He's on an awful team, and we don't want to get into the Carey Price issue that we got into last year, I think. So.
Yeah. And the other thing that I noticed that out of his 8 goals, 7 of them came on the power play. So he only had one 5-on-5 goal last season, which isn't great. But just from past success, and this is like his first like truly awful season in the NHL, and that could come off as contradicting myself when it comes to like Carey Price last season or whatever. But I just put it more on him just having a little bit of a down year. And my number 7 is
number 8. Number 8.
Sorry. I forgot. I switched my number 7 and 8. But my number 8 is Mark Giordano, the Norris Trophy winner from this past season. Outstanding year, 17 goals, 74 points in 78 games. He had 4 short-handed goals, which was crazy. And he also averaged over 26 minutes a night. But yeah, I think the one thing that does bring him down just a little bit is that this is like his first big season in the NHL. Like he's been like somewhat productive over the past seasons, like around like the 40-point mark. But like I want to see him do it one more time just to truly cement him in like as a top 5 defenseman in the NHL. But yeah, those are my top from 10 to 8. Morgan Riley, Drew Doughty, and Mark Giordano.
And when I was making my list, again, I was looking at who would I want on my team. So not just an offensive guy, but a guy that's all around, guy with size, guy that hits, guy that kills penalties, guy that does power play. So I know how it's like going through this process, but I'm going to go 7 to 5 now on my list. Number 7, you've already mentioned him, Los Angeles Kings player Drew Doughty. He's too hard to ignore on this list. Again, if I'm going to start up a team, he's going to be there. The LA Kings are just god-awful, and he's still – even though he had a bad season, I think it reflects on what their team had more. And Doughty, to me, if the Kings can – I don't see them getting any better. But if Doughty all of a sudden, let's say, went to the Leafs, he'd be one of the best defensemen in the NHL, right? So that's why he's on my list, number 7. Number 6, I debated whether to even have this guy on my list or not because he had a rough season. But he is a solid player, and I think he's still worthy of a top 10 list, and that's San Jose's Erik Karlsson, making my list at number 6. And then you've already talked about my number 5, Toronto Maple Leaf, Morgan Riley. He could have been anywhere on my list. I have him higher only because he still has upside. And if he does improve his defensive game a little bit, all around, he'd be unbelievable to have. But he really drives that offense in Toronto. And I don't think there's, even with the forwards that Toronto has, I think Riley would still drive that offense on any team, regardless of those forwards or not, just the way he plays. So 7 through 5, Drew Doughty, Erik Karlsson, and Morgan Riley.
All right. So my 7 to 5 will have some similar guys. My number 7, Seth Jones from the Columbus Blue Jackets. another stellar season, and especially in the playoffs this past season. Man, did he step it up.
Yes.
3 goals, 9 points in 10 games in the playoffs, and averaged over 28 and a half minutes. Playing half a game in the playoffs. So, big, mobile. I still think this guy will win a Norris Trophy sometime in his career.
And his dad's a former Toronto Raptor. Popeye Jones.
I was gonna say I don't care too much for basketball, but that is
it's an interesting random thing.
But yeah, he's one of those guys that's like, if I'm starting a franchise, I want him on my team.
Yeah.
With him and Zach Werenski, like that's a great top pair together. My number 6, you brought him up earlier as well, Alex Pietrangelo with the St. Louis Blues. Regular season, 13 goals, 41 points. But in the playoffs, he took it to a whole nother level once again, 19 points in 26 games. And was part of that big 3 with Colton Parayko and Jay Bouwmeester, just shutting down all opposition's top players and getting it done offensively. And it's a big year for him as well. He's in the final year of his contract, and he's looking to get paid this upcoming summer. So yeah, and then my number 5 is Erik Karlsson. It's still crazy with all the, like, going to a new team with the San Jose, and then on top of that dealing with all the injuries, just how he was still able to produce when he wasn't 100%. Like, he still had 45 points in 53 games, and then in the playoffs, playing like on like one leg, he still had 16 points in 19 games. So if he is healthy for the entire season, there's no other defense in the NHL like him. Like, his vision, his playmaking, his mobility, it's just next to none. So I gotta have him at least in my top 5 going into this season.
Wow, I'm actually shocked we haven't touched on each other's lists yet, but I'm actually shocked at how, out of all these potential players, we've done pretty well to being on the same page so far. But I'm going to go 4 and 3 now. Number 4 has been the anchor of a big 4 defenseman for a long time, Nashville Predator defenseman Roman Josi. He does it at both ends of the ice, and he's actually a smaller defenseman, but super fast. And one of the reasons why they can afford to move a guy like PK Subban is because Josi just gets the job done on that Nashville defense. He can play a ton of minutes. He can play power play. He can play penalty kill. He plays a lot of regular shifts and just does it all for them. And my number 3, you already touched on, captain of the Calgary Flames, Mark Giordano. He used to be way down my list, but I have so much respect for this guy as a Canucks fan, being on the team that I absolutely hate. The guy, like you said, shorthanded, penalty killing, or power play. To me, he's actually continued to improve over the last few years, and he is just one of those guys that have an incredible all-around game now to him. So that's my number 4, and my number 3, Roman Josi, Mark Giordano.
All right. My number 4 from the Washington Capitals, John Carlson. He followed up last season when the Caps won the Stanley Cup with another amazing season, 70 points in 80 games, averaging just over 25 minutes a night. And then in the playoffs, he was also really good. But yeah, this is a guy that actually also relied in all situations as well. I think he doesn't get as much respect on the penalty kill as other defensemen do. And then when it comes to running the power play, like he's got the best job in the NHL running that Caps power play. So
you can give it to Backstrom, Kuznetsov, or Ovechkin, or shoot.
Yeah, it's just amazing. So it's like I'm going to see him. He's probably going to have another 70-plus point season once again. And then my number 3, you just brought him up, Roman Josi, number 3, 56 points, 15 goals, just an absolute beast. And I also looked, he's a great shot producer as well. He had 274 shots on goal, which was second best among NHL defensemen, among a guy that we will touch on shortly. But yeah, it's just he's that leader of the Predators, and he's also in a big contract here as he's in the final year of his contract. And what a deal that is. $4 million cap hit right now. It's like when Nashville signed that contract, it was like, yeah, 7 years, $28 million. Like, what an absolute steal. And this guy, he's another guy that's going to get paid this offseason. So, but yeah, my number 4, John Carlson. My number 3, Roman Josi.
All right. I'm not sure if we got the same order for these last two guys, but I am shocked that our top 10 list have the same 10 players out of all of the we could have chosen. Wow, that just absolutely shocks me. But my number 2, Drew Doughty called him awful at some point this year. But this guy, I mean, I would love this guy on my team any day. Brett Burns of the San Jose Sharks. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. He can play forward, he can play defense, he can play power play, he can play penalty kill, and he's just consistent all over the ice. I just love everything he does, and I one day wish he would be in a Canucks uniform, but that's most likely not going to happen. And of course, my number 1 is from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Victor Hedman, and to me, he would be the primary anchor to build your team around. He does everything for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, that's perfect. That is exactly the order I have mine as well. 16 goals, 83 points in 82 games. That's a career season, and he's like 34, 35 years old. An absolute beast. It's like I brought up the Yossi's shots on goal. He had 300 shots on goal. That's one of the things I've noticed over the past few seasons. This guy is not afraid to shoot the puck, and that's something that creates a lot of offense and rebounds. And potential goals, because the Sharks, they had the second best offense, tied with the Calgary Flames last season. And then of course he can run you over with those big butt hip checks or whatever in open ice. And then once again in the playoffs, like I brought up Seth Jones' ice time in the playoffs. He also averaged around 28.5 minutes a night during the playoffs. But yeah, it's just like I took away from like some of the defensive lapses, and it's just like once when you truly just look at what he produces everywhere else, it's like, and like technically, like, he's not a bad defenseman or on the defensive side. But yeah, if you take all that away, it's like he is one of the ultimate defensemen in the NHL. And especially at his age, it's like when you keep getting better, sort of like what you brought up with Giordano. It's just crazy that they're able to do that. And then of course, number 1, Victor Hedman, 12 goals, 54 points in 70 games last year. And of course, one of the big reasons why Tampa Bay got eliminated in 4 straight games was that he only played in 2 of them, and he was dealing with injuries as well. But yeah, this the ultimate defenseman, I think. Like size, like 6'6", 6'7". He can skate for a big man, and then he can shut down any top players in the NHL. He'll probably win another Norris Trophy or 2 in his career potentially. So, but yeah, it's just when it comes to the top 10 NHL defensemen, I'm actually surprised that we had all.
I'm shocked we had the exact same 10. So, quickly, because we're almost out of time, give me 5 guys on your honorable mention list.
All right.
Just give me names only.
Okay. Ryan McDonough with Tampa Bay, Chris Letang with Pittsburgh, John Klingberg with Dallas, Shea Weber with Montreal, and Jacob Slavin with the Carolina Hurricanes.
I did not have McDonough on my honorable mentions, but also somebody, I think he's a very good defenseman. But a couple of mine, PK Subban. A lot of people know him. He's flashy, but there's a reason he's left off Team Canada every year. He's just not quite on that list yet. Matthias Ekholm I have on my list, the other Nashville pillar, so to speak. He does a lot of great things for them. I also had Letang, Slavin, and Klingberg, Weber. And then I'll mention 2 others quickly. Dustin Byfuglien of the Winnipeg Jets, who's absolutely just a beast to deal with when he wants to be physical. And one of my favorite defensemen of the Arizona Coyotes, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, is a guy that can absolutely control a game. And the reason why I think Arizona might make the playoffs this year. So, final word, Matt, before we end today's show.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch one thing on why I put McDonough on my list. He had 46 points last year. Only 3 of those points came on the power play. So it just shows, like, 5-on-5, how great he was. And I think he was, like, actually 8th in Norris Trophy voting this past season. So as much as people give credit to Hedman, that addition of Ryan McDonough did wonders for Tampa Bay last season. But, yeah, of course, our NHL season previews. We're just about through all the teams. We are up to the Vegas Golden Knights today, and we will finish out the week with Washington and Winnipeg. Thank you for all that have read all those previews and our depth charts on there. And yeah, we'll be getting pretty close to boosting our shows up to at least a couple days a week. But I think we'll do that closer to the start of the season, as I think training camps actually start up this weekend.
Our face the sign first.
Yes. But yeah, otherwise we'll figure out which top 10 we're going to do next week, or left wingers, centers, or right wingers. But it'll be one of those for our top 10 list next week.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Matt. And remember to like us, share us, comment below. Facebook, YouTube, B&B Hockey Talk. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, guys, for tuning us in. Thanks for all your support on the pages, and we'll see you guys next week.